Welcome back, folks. Now, I've done whole shows where I've spoken to you about the energetic nature of the universe, the energetic nature of reality, the reality of polarities, and how every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And when you can look at the universe like this, folks, you begin to see things in a whole different light. And because I look at the universe like this, I see things such as these new pieces of legislation that have been brought in as a gift. I see coal seam gas mining as a gift. I see the recent information that's come to light about the chemtrails and the nanoparticulates within the chemtrails as a gift. I see it all as a gift because at last the system is becoming bare for all to see. It's so in your face now, folks, that you just can't miss it. And this is causing a huge amount of people to wake up to reality. So I see it all as a gift. And you think, folks, if the powers that be weren't going to these extraordinary extremes that they currently are in order to control people and control reality and to shape the evolution of human consciousness, then we'd just be still bumbling along the way we were in the 1950s and the 1960s. We would be none the wiser. And so the chances are we may not have made any type of spiritual evolution at all. Because the more negative these people have made it, the more positive human consciousness becomes. Just by default, because every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And that's why I don't mind sometimes having to bring you some very negative information, folks, because when I bring you this information, it provides you with the opportunity to demonstrate to you the positive side of the information and the opportunity that it's providing to the human race. The thing is, you've got to be aware of what's going on. You've got to be aware of the systems of control that are being brought in to control reality in order to deal with these problems. But you need to be able to look at these problems not out of fear, but you need to see the silver lining. You need to see the opportunity, because in all calamity comes opportunity. That's the thing, folks, is that a lot of people look at all this negative stuff and they go straight into fear, where I don't. I look at it and I see opportunity. And then you get the love and lighters who will not even look at it at all. And so they miss all the opportunities that have been provided to them for the ascension that they all want. I mean, and if I look at ascension, folks, all I see ascension as is humanity connecting, humanity actually taking that next step in consciousness. And that's not going to happen until we do connect, until we start to operate from empathy. It's not about communing with a light or communing with a sound or communing with whatever you think you're communing with. If you're not realizing that there is only one self and you're not communing with self, then it's all a waste of time. Even those people who won't make it, folks, you can still commune with these people. You can still see all these people as yourself, and you can still look at all of them from a perspective of empathy and interact with all of them from a perspective of empathy. Empathy is the key, folks, and a lot of people are missing out on that, and they're refusing to look at the other side of the spectrum and look at the negative stuff. And so, as I said, they are missing all the opportunities that are being provided for them to affect positive change in the world. And these opportunities are coming almost daily now, folks. We're seeing so much ramping up of this control grid. And every ramping up of the control grid is an opportunity for self-empowerment for each individual within this system. But people aren't seeing it that way. They're seeing it as something to fear. And because they're in fear of it, they're going and locking themselves away. They're becoming more and more divided from their community. They're going into paranoia and nobody wants to talk to them. Or they're going and hiding in a cupboard somewhere and building up a supply of food and never going outside, staying inside with a gun and a CB radio and hoping that the system comes for them last. When really they should be doing the opposite, because all of these situations are providing them with an opportunity to unite with the people around them, to unite with their community and put that common unity back in to their relationships with people. And they're missing out on this. And they're missing out on this because they're going straight into fear and either becoming paranoid or running away and hiding or refusing to face it altogether and simply focusing their imagination on a light being. And in doing all of these things, people are missing the point and they're missing the opportunity. And so what happens is the world gets a little bit more negative. Okay, you missed that opportunity. Okay, well, maybe I better make it a little bit more blatant. Here's a bigger opportunity. Will you do something now? Okay, you didn't do that either. Okay, we'll make it really negative this time. Here's an even bigger opportunity. Are we awake yet? No, they still haven't woken up. And so it just keeps going like this, folks. That's the way it works, because mankind is refusing to see the opportunity. They're refusing to see the silver lining that exists there in the problem. And so reality creates a new problem. And that's the way it works, folks, because every action has an equal and opposite reaction. I mean, sure, you'll get more people wake up each time they bring in new legislation, each time they ramp it up a little bit more, you'll get more people wake up. But unfortunately, what happens is these people usually move into fear, or they move into violence or something like that. They're not seeing the opportunity, they're only seeing the problem. And I guess that's where I try to bring back the balance with these radio programs, because until humankind begins to understand the nature of the energetic universe and how to interact with that energy and sees the opportunities that exist in these problems, because these opportunities exist energetically, because these opportunities are all about changing what's inside of you, changing your energetic state. Until humankind does this, we're never really going to be able to affect positive change. We're never going to reach that greater spirituality that we need to have, that greater connection to reality, and that greater connection with each other, because they have to go together. They have to go together by default, folks. And like I said, even though there are certainly a lot of negative people in the world, and there are a lot of people who simply won't make any type of transition to higher realms, but that's okay, because that's their path. But until we as individuals can recognize these people as being valid and stop holding animosity and hatred towards these people, well, then it's never going to work either. It's never going to work for us, because you've got to be operating from a state of empathy. And I can see the bad and psychopathic people in the world, and I don't want to be like them. I find some of them quite scary. I feel the world would be a better place if they didn't exist in the world. But they do exist. And because they exist, it means they are part of the consciousness of the self. And so I can't deny them their valid perspective and their valid place in reality. And as I said, folks, if it wasn't for these people making it negative in the first place, then we very likely wouldn't have this spiritual awakening happening, because every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So, of course, these people serve a valid purpose. They're serving to wake up all of the people in the world who are asleep. And so that is certainly a valid purpose. So you've got to see these people as valid, and you've got to deal with these people out of empathy. Even if you don't have anything to do with them, you don't want to be directing that hatred to them, that negative emotion, folks, because all you're doing is charging the field. And when you hate somebody, you lose your own strength. They don't lose any strength from you hating them. You are the one who loses strength. And I've mentioned on earlier shows back in 2009, I think, that you can prove this, and you can actually do strength tests. Go and feel really loving towards something, and then do a strength test and see how strong you are. And then go and direct some real hatred. Really focus your hatred on something that you hate. Whether it's George Bush or Obama or Dick Cheney or whatever it is, just focus your attention on it and really get that hate going in your veins. And then go and do a strength test. And you'll find that you are much weaker than what you were when you were in a state of love. And so there's a clue there, folks. It's all about energy. It's an energetic universe, and we need to interact with the universe in that way. So I can look at the negative stuff that's being done, and I feel absolute sorrow and pity for these people, because I love them and they know not what they do. And it's the same for police officers. It's the same for politicians. I mean, sometimes I insult them. I'll call them psychopaths. I'll call them this and I'll call them that. And very often they are psychopaths. But I don't hate them for being what they are. It's just what they are. And I see their existence as necessary in order to create the positive change that we need. And that's why I don't mind bringing negative information to people, because there's a lot of people out there that are bringing negative information, and people are going to be getting it anyway, just from their newspapers and their televisions, and just from looking at the world around you. The more and more in your face it gets, the more negative the world seems to become, because people look at this information and they have an energetic reaction to it, and they either go into fear or anger. And so I attempt to bring the same information to people, but I attempt to show them the opportunity that exists there for them, because it's important that we see this. And frankly, folks, someone's got to do it, and that's a lot of the reason why I continue to do these shows. The more ramping up and negative it gets, the more I feel I need to speak about it from a perspective of opportunity, just so that people see what they're being provided with here. And folks, you've got to understand that really directing hatred at politicians and things, it makes no sense. I mean, the stuff that Obama does, the stuff that Julia Gillard does here, the stuff that the Prime Minister of Canada does. I mean, these people, they all act like they're clones. They all act like they've been mind-controlled by the same program. They all do the bidding of higher forces. But ultimately, the people that are working within the system, the prime ministers, the politicians, the lawyers, the police, all these people are simply doing what they've been trained to do. They've all had a left-brain education. They've all been taught that the system is real and that the system is the most important thing in the world. And you need to protect the system at all costs, even if it is done at the expense of humanity. They don't ever think that, hang on a minute, the system was actually created to service humanity's needs. Maybe I should be thinking about what I'm doing, because they're not taught that way. They're taught that they must support the system. And so that's what they do. And this need to support the system and this desire to support the system is heavily ingrained within these people's minds. And because the system is essentially psychopathic, it affects the minds of these people similar to a pathogen. And they behave in a psychopathic manner. They'll do something and say, gee, I feel really bad about doing this, but I have no choice because it says on this piece of paper that I have to do it. And that's just the way they think. They don't ever think that what is written on this piece of paper fails to serve humanity in any way at all, and therefore I should be questioning it and perhaps questioning the entire system itself. But certainly questioning whoever it was who legislated this into existence, and questioning whoever it was who gave me the order to carry out this action. Because if the system is making humanity the most expendable thing within its parameters, then obviously the system is flawed. And that's the way these people should be looking at it, and that's the way humanity needs to be looking at it as well. And people need to realize, and the police most certainly need to realize, that all of the laws that are being brought in, such as Bill H.R. 347, and all of the bills that protect gas companies and allows them to destroy the water table, all of the legislation surrounding these politicians and these industries has all been put there in order to protect the politicians and protect the industries, not to protect the people. And so the police seriously need to question where their priorities lie. Do they support a fictional system, or do they support the human race? Because they're part of the human race, so one would think that the survival of the human race would be something of importance to these people. And so that's the perspective that the police and the authorities need to adopt when they're dealing with all of this corrupt legislation, which is serving only to support the corporate rape of the planet and to protect the politicians and allow them to get away with the massive theft that they are currently indulging in. I mean, that's the truth of the matter, folks, and the only way we the people are going to be able to help the police wake up to this and help those politicians who aren't completely caught up in psychopathy to wake up as well is by treating these people with respect, by loving them, and by supporting our community around them. See, we need to have a community that simply doesn't need these people. We wouldn't need police if we didn't have a community that promoted violence. The only reason the community promotes violence is because the people within the community are kept in a manufactured state of scarcity, and they're all kept divided from each other. And so again, folks, it always comes back to building community. It all comes back to getting to know your neighbours and approaching reality from a perspective of empathy. Once we can do that, it all falls apart. Our need for police and our need for politicians simply evaporates. The system itself evaporates because the system only exists because we give it our energy. We give it our attention rather than giving attention to the people around us.